Alhamdulillah. Thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And today I am believed today to talk about postmodernism in literature. It's very important for the students of Department of English Language and Literature. Postmodernism must come under 20th century literary theories and movements. So thinking of the betterment of the students, I would like to discuss postmodernism in literature. Postmodernism is the most important theory in the recent years talked about. In today's context, it has been used so massively that it is really very difficult for theorists to set a distinctive line between modernism and postmodernism. The term postmodernism was first used in the 1950s by critics who wanted to describe the perception of new kinds of literary experiment and cultural modernism. The term is now variously used to describe both the contemporary cultural condition and a diverse range of intellectual responses. Now, definition. The term postmodernism is an idiom that talks about a style, movement in art, architecture, literature, etc. in the late 20th century. But broadly speaking, the Enlightenment and the modernism promised a number of hopes and aspirations, but it was not fulfilled because the aftermath of the First World War shattered all these promises. It proved that modernism did not come true. And postmodernism is an academic reaction of all these failures, of all those failures. So, the academic reaction against Enlightenment and modernism should be known as postmodernism, which makes us to realize a reasonably stable sense of truth, knowledge, self, and value. Actually, being a late 20th century movement, it discusses skeptical interpretation of culture, literature, art, philosophy, history, economics, architecture, fiction, and literary criticism. But it is not opposite to modernism, rather an extension of modernism. Then, opinions and ideas of postmodernism from different sagacious critics. Umberto Eco is an Italian novelist, a literary critic, philosopher, semiotician, and a university professor. He thinks that postmodernism is an unfortunate term. Jürgen Habermas is a German critic. He also thinks that postmodernism is an unfinished project. Ayab Habib Hassan was an Egypt-born American literary theorist and writer. He also thinks that postmodernism can be assumed as an antinomian movement. John Simmons Barth is an American writer who is best known for his postmodernist and metafictional fiction. He also thinks that postmodernism was essentially a continuation but modification of cultural modernism, a way of telling stories. Then Terry Eagleton wrote a book named The illusion of postmodernism, dealing with a concept of subjectivity and a structural understanding of culture, economic, political realities. In his reading, postmodernism is an intellectual decadence and a cultural disorder. Better to say, another another France critic, Jean Francois Lyotard, wrote a book named The Postmodern Condition in 1979, dealing with a report on knowledge. In this book, he explained the idea, both meta-narrative and grand narrative. The historian Arnold Toynbee first used the postmodernism in 1947, which was used as the current, fourth, and final phase of the Western culture dominated by anxiety and irrationalism. Now we have to discuss enlightenment to focus the term postmodernism deeply. So let's come to the point of enlightenment. We know very well that 18th century enlightenment is the age of reason. The period was especially characterized by a profound faith in the powers of human reason, a devotion to the clarity of thought, to harmony, proportion, and balance. Most of the writers and philosophers of this period express themselves in lucid and often humorous prose. The 18th century Enlightenment figures are Kant, Moses Mendelssohn, and Lessing. They all belong to the critics of German. Voltaire, Diderot, both they belong to the critics of France. Locke, Newton, Berkeley, Johnson, Hume, they all critics of the England. They are postmodern thinkers. Actually, the critics of German, France, England, all of them endeavor or try to embrace reason and logic. The basic concept of enlightenment was reason, logic, and thought. The Enlightenment and the Modernism promised a number of hopes and aspirations, but it was not fulfilled because the aftermath of the First World War shattered all these promises. It proved that modernism did not come true. Postmodernism is an academic reaction of all these failures. So, the academic reaction against Enlightenment and modernism can be assumed as postmodernism. Enlightenment and modernism besides, both promised a number of hopes and aspirations and a well developed life leading. But actually, within Enlightenment and modernism, there was a rotten thing that conspired with the optimistic person and the shocked theme. Besides, the meta narrative and grand narrative looked so illuminating that people behoved them, but at last they became fallacies. As a result, they turned into mini narration. So, postmodernism is a reaction against modernism and enlightenment. Then, let's come to the modern tendency. What are the modern tendency? Avant-garde or advance garde. To go forward, to go ahead, and the new creation of new concept. These are the modern tendencies. And postmodernism is a newer avant-garde. Navana Roman is a kind of new novel and experiment dealing with postmodernism. Then we have to discuss characteristics of postmodernism. Let us discuss the characteristics of postmodernism. Firstly, the concept of anti-hero, who is a villain, turns into hero. Secondly, applications of imagic realism. It is the form of South America and African literature. In modernism, we have seen realism, but in postmodernism, we have got imagic realism. Here, real and unreal are so beautifully juxtaposed that it seems to be true. Thirdly, concrete poetry in terms of form, wherever something is eclectic in approach, in mood, so true to one case but untrue to another. And specifically, the important facts which influence the literature are manifested in a numerical order. Number one, League of Nations, Vienna Conventions, United Nations, especially United Nations, was formed. Number two, the principles of the Enlightenment disappeared. Number three, Westerners' belief in progress and purity of knowledge ended. Number four, most of the colonies became independent. Number five, universities became the sources of philosophical and literary theories. Number six, Jacques Derrida, Michael Foucault, Richard Rorty established the fact that philosophy should be no longer seek truth, rather they should concentrate on discussing the various interpretations of reality. Number seven, Christian faith has lost its hold on life and society. Number eight, belief in man's goodness has decreased, reduced. Number 10, globalization and information technology have grown rapidly. Number 11, there has been a boom in publishing technology. Number 12, Cold War and its end left great impacts, deep impacts on world politics. Then Germany was divided and united. And finally, radio and television have played important roles in shaping life. Then we have to discuss major literary features of postmodernism. The major literary features of postmodernism are projected in the following in a numerical way. Number one, literary voyages from across the globe, Canada, New Zealand, India, the Caribbean, and African appeared in English so profusely, so profoundly that English literature seems to be literature in English. Number two, angry young man has remained a recurrent theme of the for the years. Number three, social realism dominates. Social realism dominates creativity for decades and decades after decades. After 1950, 1950, some novelists changed their interest from a realism from realism into from realistic problems to entertaining subjects. Science fiction and thriller became popular more and more. And number five, the postmodern drama. Number five, the postmodern drama deal with absurdity of the human existence and reveal the nothingness or meaninglessness of human efforts. Number six, literary criticism has become theory based. Number seven, mass media have become an inseparable part of literary propaganda. Number eight, creative writings cross national boundaries. In this way, they never did before. Number nine, no philosophical theory runs for a long time. Number 10, forms and techniques frequently change throughout the period. Number 11, formlessness in art replaces whatever residues of harmony and organic form remained of the previous age. And number 12, mixed genres, fragments, and text have come into practice. And number 13, diaspora writings occupy a large chunk of literary production. And number 14, a huge number of post-colonial texts appear. And number 15, awareness of cultural exploitation grows. And number 16, gender issues find stronger growth, stronger voice. And number 17, themes of restlessness, free of forms, characterize poetry. And number 18, illicit, elitist. Number 18, elitist language is absent completely, out and out. And number 19, a wide spectrum of social issues find place. And finally, number 20, several contradictions prevail throughout the age. Then we should know about the major writers of this period and their major works. Henry Miller is a postmodern writer. He is mainly famous for the Rosy Crucifixion, a trilogy. And then George Orwell, her real name is Eric Arthur Miller. He is mainly famous for two writings, The Animal Farm and 1984. Then Graham Greene, he is also famous for his two writings, The Heart of Matter and The End of Affair. Then R.K. Narayan, an Indian writer, he wrote a number of books, The Dark Room, The Financial Expert, The Guide, and A Tiger for Malgudi. Then Samuel Beckett, a French dramatist. He is mainly famous for Waiting for Godot, Endgame, and Happy Days. Then Weston Hughes Auden, he is mainly famous for Age of Anxiety. William Golding, G.L. Golding, a novelist. He is mainly famous for The Lord of the Flies. And Albert Camus is mainly famous for his two books, Outsider or The Stranger, and then The Myths of Sisyphus. Then D.M. Thomas, that means Dylan Malleus Thomas. He wrote a number of books, The Map of Love, Days of Entrances, Under Mill Code, and then Arthur Miller. Arthur Miller wrote a number of books and Death of a Salesman, After the Fall, and The Prince. And then, and finally, Ahmed Salman Rushdie is also a postmodern writer. He is mainly famous for his two books, The Midnight Children and The Satanic Verses. Then, so we have already discussed the impacts of postmodernism on literature, and especially now, one point we should know more about music, the impacts of music on postmodern literature. Band music is a postmodern music, and postmodernism is sometimes applied to the literature and art from the Second World War and onward. We see in the 20th century The novel shifted its interest from realistic problems to entertaining subjects. Science fiction and thriller became more popular during this period, and postmodern drama dealt with the absurdity of human existence and revealed the nothingness or meaninglessness of human existence. And in conclusion, judging from all points of view, we can say that postmodernism is an amorphous term. There is no distinctive demarcation between modernism and postmodernism. Eventually, choosing the best out of all the things. Postmodernism is an amorphous term. There is no distinctive demarcation between modernism and postmodernism. So thank you very much for your cooperation and coordination.